Hi guys, Watch Fanatic here. So this is a watch I bought about a week ago, which I think could be the bargain of the year. Well, for me anyway, off eBay. As you can see, it's a lovely looking vintage Tissot. I guess that's a dress watch, and I guess it's probably a unisex. I've seen a couple of these online and they've described them as unisex. Now, before we kind of get into this watch, I'll just tell you why I think it was a bargain. So the guy who was selling this, in his description, he wrote down that the mainspring had gone. I'm not a watch expert. I can't repair mainsprings or anything like that. But I think also amongst the advert, he was basically saying it was working, but the mainspring's gone. It wasn't a very accurate kind of description. And I think it was putting people off because I won it for £26, which is a good price for one of these. Now, it was a little bit grotty. I've given it a really good clean up. But more importantly, it's working perfectly and keeping really good time. And I've been wearing this for a couple of days round at home. It's not something I'll probably wear out too much. Maybe I will. I mean, it's quite interesting looking. And it is a beautiful watch. Some might say a little effeminate, but I don't know. It's of its time. And yeah, I got the case back off and it was ticking, but it was stopping. So basically it needs a good service. So I used my trick of a small drop of lighter fluid, which I dropped onto the back of the balance wheel bearing, let that soak in, and that did a job of rejuvenating the oil which is underneath the bearings, and it's been working perfect ever since. I mean, after I did that, it kind of ran slightly fast, and then after a couple of hours, it just evened out, and now it's keeping really good time. So I don't know how long it's going to work for. It does probably need a full proper service, and actually, looking online, there's only a couple of examples of these, but there's one for sale with, is it Vintage or something? I can't remember. Anyway, they got it on for over £200, and the dial isn't as good condition as this. The watch isn't as good condition as this. My dial is pretty much mint. Their one had some marks and things on it. So it's worth as much as anyone's willing to pay for it, but they think it's worth over £200. That's what they got theirs for sale for. So I think for £26, got myself a little bit of a bargain there. Now, I've always quite fancied one of these, what they call bark bracelets. So this is gold plating. It's a really good gold plating. There's very little wear to the gold plating, considering it's an old watch. It's held up very well. So I'm guessing there's a good slab of gold on there. And you've got this kind of bark effect on the links, which was quite popular back in the 70s. And it's quite cool. It really looks like it's a solid gold watch. A lot of gold plated stuff, just looks gold plated. But this one, it looks, I was looking for a hallmark. I thought, is this solid gold? Because it really does appear like a solid gold watch. And I think that bark effect helps that. And the brightness of the gold is quite amazing. It's got it really is eye-catching. And when I was wearing this, you really notice it. It looks quite showy. But obviously it's a dated look now. But people who enjoy vintage watches like myself, I quite enjoy wearing a vintage watch occasionally. I'm often wearing kind of more modern watches. This is just a cheap one, a Chinese one I bought recently. I've done a review on, which is a Captain Willard homage, 12 quid. But I love watch. I've got Invictus, I've got Pagani design, I've got some Seiko, that type of thing. But I've got a large vintage watch collection, and I will wear my vintage watches from time to time, just for fun. For fun, out of interest, is part of the hobby I enjoy, is trying these watches on and seeing how they look and perhaps wearing them out for a day. So we haven't got a second hand on this. It's just the hour and minute hand. So the only way to know it was working was with the back off, or just leaving it, looking back at it and seeing if the time is moving. But as you can see, it's keeping time. I set this again this morning. I haven't worn this for a couple of days, so it'd run out, but I've wound it back up and I set it early this morning and it's keeping perfect time. So it's still working. So that's good news. But as I said, it probably does need a proper service. But I'll keep that in my collection anyway. So let's see if I can pop this case back off. Now, on the case back, handily, it's got a nice little cutout, I would call that, like a little groove. So you can get a screwdriver in there, which a lot of case backs don't have that. So that's a nice touch. Oh, postwoman's just put something through my door. I think that's another watch which I bought off eBay. It's just arrived. Okay, so there's the back. Interesting case back. And here is the movement. And it's ticking along quite nicely. I'm no expert. People may tell me that it hasn't got a lot of power. I don't know, but it seems to be going pretty well. So what I did with a little bit of lighter fuel, which I know you shouldn't do, but it's a cheap watch to me. I wanted to see if I could get it working, and it has done the job. I put a little drop on top of there, and I think I put a little drop on top of these 3 as well. Just let it soak in, and the thing just is working. Now, it doesn't always work, that trick. Sometimes it will work for a little while and then it will make the watch go too fast, but often it will get a watch working that hasn't been working if it's really gummed up and the oil's really dried out. But it's not something I would suggest you do. You can damage the watch if the lighter fuel gets onto the dial. It can damage the dial. It can move debris around the movement perhaps, which could cause more wear and tear to the movement. So I'm just taking my own risk here. I've done that, but it is working perfectly. So now I've got a watch which is working, and it was a tiny little bit of lighter fuel. And I think what it does is the viscosity of the oil degrades over time, and it kind of gives that a little bit of a boost. And it only works with lighter fuel. There's nothing else that will do that trick. And some watch repairers apparently use lighter fuel to actually clean the movements when they're apart. But I don't know too much about that. So the actual movement itself, if I zoom in, because I can't remember the number of it. Let's have a look there. A 2141. Excuse the shaking. I'm at zoom here and holding it. I'm at full zoom, so I can't get any. It's a very small little movement plate. As you can see by the size of my screwdriver next to it. That's a little watch screwdriver, so that is absolutely tiny. I don't know if people's eyesight was better in the past. I don't know, but I don't think I could have read that even before I needed reading glasses. So I'm not sure that the 2141 may be one of these earlier Tissot movements that they used in Omega watches as well, because I have this is my second Tissot watch. I have another one. Yeah, so this is my other Tissot. This is one of the first vintage watches I bought. Really love this watch. This is a Tissot C-Star from the 1970s. And this has a movement, I can't remember the number. I've made a video about this, so if you go back through my videos, you can watch it where I take the back off and you can see the movement. But the movement in that was the same movement that was in some of the Omega Seamasters. So they shared the same movement. So the early Tissots are a really good quality, basically on par with Omega. I paid about £26 for that. I did give that a good clean up and polish to get it into that state, and bought a new strap for it. And that's an automatic. So this one is obviously a hand wind, and that movement just drops out of there. There's nothing holding it in, and that's the way it's meant to be, apart from the case itself. So So you can see the dial is in really lovely condition. Just a tiny little bit of wear around the edges. Got your Swiss made. And at this stage, it's Tissot's just written on the dial. It hasn't got that Tissot, applied Tissot and T, like that one has. And the hands are in really good shape, and you've got the Roman numerals. And the glass is in very good shape. It's got a little bit of a scratch on it, a little bit of wear, but nothing serious at all. I think there's a light scratch on there somewhere. Let's zoom this back out. Put this. Oh, while I'm here, the crown itself has got a lovely Tissot emblem on the crown. So that's a nice touch. Yeah, so it's only a tiny little movement, but it certainly does the job. So this was very easy to clean because I could take it apart extremely easily and clean everything nicely. Sometimes on the case backs, you'll see scratchings, which is usually where they've been serviced in the past. The guy who serviced it, he will put the date or perhaps his name or something like that. And this has got some scratchings, but wow, it's difficult to see. You can see there some scratchings there, hard to read. And some scratchings. Something to look for. So when you get a vintage watch, get the case back off, see if you can read whatever the scratching is. It might let you know the last time it was serviced. I can't, very difficult to make out though. Yeah, I can't even make that out. I don't know if that's the number of the movement or what. And we've got a number there, 31201. There's more writing on the edge. So, it tells a bit of a story. Lovely quality brushed kind of stainless steel case back. Just pop that back and I'll show you it on the wrist. What this unisex lovely little Tissot looks like. So that just pops on like that. Simple as that. Now, I haven't adjusted this for my wrist. It's slightly large. It's got a couple of adjustment here. You can either have it on that bar or that bar. So I'll put it on the smallest setting, but it's still a bit big for me. But I'm not going to take the links out because I'm not really going to wear this. But the links can be removed. They are here. Little push pin ones, I think. Just before I do that, it is approximately about 33mm across, that dial. So it's not tiny, but it's not huge. Just to give you an idea. So I kind of put that on off camera, slightly tricky. You put the tongue through the nearest bar and then it just clips together, I think. Like that. And you can see the bark bracelet really catches the light. So that's what it looks like on my hairy arm. 6.5 inch wrist, 6.5 to 7 inch. Especially on this warm day, my wrists usually swell up a bit when it's warmer. Yeah, it's definitely different, isn't it? And it looks expensive. That's what I liked about it. But yeah, the style, don't know. I like it and I don't like it at the same time. But it's certainly an interesting watch. I think I've got a bargain there for £26 all the time it's working, considering that there's another one on there trying to sell for 200 odd. So I must have done all right on that, I would say. So there are bargains out there occasionally, especially where people perhaps get the listing a bit wrong, or perhaps they don't realise that the watch doesn't need a mainspring. I don't think it needs a mainspring at all. I don't think that was the issue. It just needs a service. These are high quality movements, and you know, they will go on for many years. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this watch interesting. Tell me what you think in the comments. Please like and subscribe. And I want to say thanks to all my subscribers so far. I'm getting closer to the 1,000 subscribers, and I'm not that far off the 4,000 watch hours. So I really appreciate it if you like, share and subscribe to my channel. It would be fantastic to actually make that milestone, and then I can bring you more vintage watches to show you and to review. Not just vintage watches, some modern watches as well. Watches that not everyone's doing reviews on, odd watches perhaps you haven't seen before, not all the usual suspect type things, something like this that perhaps if I hadn't showed you this you would never knew it existed. So I think that's the interesting thing about buying vintage watches, especially on eBay. You never know what's going to come up, you know, what you're going to see. Before I go, I mean, Tissot, for instance, they are a watch manufacturer. If you look back at their watches, so just put Tissot in Google or Vintage Tissot or something like that, and the watches are all so different. I don't think I've seen a manufacturer quite like that, where the styles of their watches change so dramatically. It's very difficult to look at a Tissot watch without Tissot on it and say, oh yes, that's a Tissot watch, because the styles are so dramatically different in almost all of their watches, apart from perhaps some of the C styles is something, but even that changed quite dramatically over the years. But there's lots of kind of oddity watches they brought out. Yeah, so that's interesting. Of course, they're very good quality. They're pretty much on par with Omega, really. But unlike the other watch brands, they don't seem to stick to, you know, a few really good watches, apart from their PRX range, obviously, which is modern, and their C-Star. But this older stuff, there's so many different ones. You never know what's going to come up. So I quite like that about Tissot. They've got a bunch of different looking watches. I mean, Rolex hasn't got, not that I'm collecting Rolexes, I'm not in that price range, but there's not that many different ones. Same with Tudor, but Tissot, wow, there's a huge amount of different watches they made and styles. So something for everyone, I think, with Tissot, and not too expensive. It's not, you'll buy a Tissot cheaper than you're going to find an Omega, cheaper than a Longines probably. Most Tissots represent, I think, good value. And you can see the quality there. Anyway, guys, as I said, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all my subscribers for almost getting me over the 1,000 subscriber hurdle. I'm nearly there. Hopefully, maybe a couple of months, I will get there. It took me a long time. A lot of videos, hard work to get there. And I'm only doing this off a phone. I'm not a professional or anything like this. I'm not doing flash intros or anything. This is about as basic as a YouTube channel can get. I'm not even showing my face. I've got no interest of putting my face on there. This is just you guys seeing watches. I'm not trying to promote myself. It's just a channel about vintage and other watches. Thanks guys. Take care.